In February 2026, the United States and Israel launched Operation Roaring Lion. This was a decapitation strike, a military strategy aimed at removing an opponent's leadership to neutralize their ability to command. Iran responded with immediate aggression. Within hours, heavy salvos of Iranian missiles targeted US military bases throughout the Gulf and civilian centers in Israel. The economic fallout was instantaneous. Iran forced the closure of the strategic Strait of Hormuz using the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC. By locking down this narrow waterway, the IRGC, an elite, autonomous branch of the Iranian military, choked off 20% of the world's oil supply. The United States committed its full military weight to a campaign for regime change in Tehran. Yet, the assault failed to break the Iranian war machine. To understand why the massive strikes of 2026 failed, we have to open the archive. We need to trace a 70-year cycle of interference that systematically built this unkillable adversary. In 1953, Iranian Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh attempted to reclaim his nation's wealth. He moved to nationalize the Iranian oil industry, which had been under British control for decades. The prize was the Abidjan oil refinery. At the time, it was the largest refinery on Earth, and the West refused to give it up. Fearing a loss of control and the potential for Soviet influence, the CIA and MI6, the United Kingdom's secret intelligence service, decided to intervene. They orchestrated a violent coup to overthrow Mossadegh's government. Following the coup, the United States installed the Shah of Iran as an absolute monarch. The country became a heavily armed security pillar for Western interests in the Persian Gulf. That intervention triggered a long-term reaction. Decades of autocratic rule and brutal repression by the Shah's secret police bred nationalist and religious anger against a regime perceived as a Western puppet. This reached a boiling point in the 1979 Islamic Revolution. The Shah was overthrown, and the secular monarchy was replaced by an anti-Western theocracy led by Ayatollah Khomeini. Relations with Washington were severed completely when Iranian students seized the US embassy in Tehran, holding dozens of Americans hostage for 444 days. By dismantling a nascent democracy to secure oil interests, the United States turned a nationalist movement into a generational grievance, effectively building its own most persistent regional adversary. In the modern era, the US shifted to economic warfare, deploying crippling sanctions to isolate Iran and halt its nuclear program. Diplomacy briefly took hold in 2015 with the signing of the JCPOA. The Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action was a deal where Iran agreed to strict nuclear limitations in exchange for sanctions relief. That fragile arrangement collapsed in 2018 when President Donald Trump unilaterally withdrew the US from the deal. His administration launched a maximum pressure campaign intended to bankrupt the Iranian state. Iran responded by accelerating its nuclear enrichment, moving significantly closer to the threshold required for a weapon. This map illustrates Iran's primary survival doctrine: forward defense. Tehran funds and arms an axis of resistance to fight its enemies on foreign soil rather than its own. This network of autonomous militias acts as a massive deterrent. It allows Iran to project power across the region without directly deploying its own regular army. Maximum pressure did not break the regime. It forced Iran to mutate. The strategy successfully externalized the country's threats, surrounding its adversaries with heavily armed proxy forces. This brings us back to the 2026 strikes. Even as the US and Israel targeted top Iranian officials, the military apparatus refused to collapse. The regime survived because of a military concept known as mosaic defense. This diagram shows the doctrine in action. It decentralizes command so that every IRGC CNEC operates as an autonomous, self-sustaining cell. This structure ensures that local commanders hold the intelligence and weapons needed to continue the fight independently. Without a centralized nervous system to sever, the traditional decapitation strike loses its utility. After studying US wars in the Middle East for 20 years, Iran built a military architecture specifically designed to survive a massive American assault. The United States is now trapped in a 70-year cycle between military strikes, economic strangulation, and proxy warfare. The confrontation has its own structural inertia. Attempting to win in one arena, like assassinating a leader, triggers a catastrophic explosion in another, such as the total closure of global energy markets. History shows that forcing regime change only hardens the successful government and deepens regional instability.
The ruins seen in 2026
marks the inevitable convergence of a 70-year cycle of interference and blowback. This is a geopolitical deadlock that raw military power is inherently unable to solve.